really the thing that's most different about Google and their AI is I have the best way of explaining this is I have a little bit of a bad habit, which is I live in Palo Alto and we have a lot of autonomous cars driving on the roads in front of me. And whenever I see them, I have this thing where I like to jump in front of them, walk in front of them, ride my bike in front of them, turn my car into them, because I figure I can learn something. I can find out whether their AI is good enough to not hit me and kill me, or they'll hit me, hopefully not very hard, and I'll have an opportunity to sign an NDA and no one will ever know about it. In this case, this car is Waymo. So typically when I talk about Waymo in public, I would usually ask people to raise their hands and say if they have ever heard of Waymo. In an audience of about 200, I'll usually get about 10 people that have heard of Waymo. So I assume that's the same today. For those of you that have never heard of Waymo, Waymo is Google's autonomous car driving division. So Google has a division that is making software that drives autonomous cars. They've been working on it for 10 years. They're using AI to make decisions about whether something is a bug running in front of it, or a bird, or a baby, or a ball, or all these things that are really complex. Google is an AI company. That's Google of today. So the same company that can make those sorts of technology, and Google actually is far ahead of all of their competitors in their space. So Google has driven more autonomous miles than Chrysler and GM, and of course Uber, and everyone else working on this exact challenge. So Google is far and away an AI company when it comes to this, like the absolute leaders, and search is really the exact same. But let's talk about some of the things that people do when it comes to SEO. So they'll say you need to do things like put keywords in a title tag. A company that has such strong AI that can make life and death decisions, keywords in a title tag shouldn't really matter all that much, because Google knows what you mean when you write it, and they know what you mean when you put it in your title tag. So when I first started doing SEO, you needed to make sure you put the right word in. I worked in an automotive space, so we needed to put cars versus vehicle, or a singular version car. Another thing people talk about is having a number of words of copy. So the common one is you need to have 1,000 words of copy. Again, the amount of words shouldn't matter to an AI engine that can actually understand and read words. All they're looking for is the right words. Next is a clickable title. So this goes into having the right keywords in your title tag, but is your title tag clickable? And we're going to trick users, and we're going to trick Google because it'll be the most attractive title tag. Again, Google is an AI engine. A clickable title is defined by people actually clicking it. Many times people talk about whether engagement metrics go into search. I think engagement metrics go into search, but not the way that people typically think. I think engagement metrics, and that's like how people search on a page, go into search in the sense that when you click on many, many words that have the word free capitalized, then Google learns from that. Their AI is learning that free is something that people like you, or people in general, are going to click forward on. Same goes with snippets. So powerful snippet, same idea. Google knows, and your AI engine is teaching them what it is that people are going to be looking for. And finally, when it comes to images, there's a lot that goes into how do you tag images? Do you put an alt tag on it? What kind of image? Does the image have to match the content? Again, thinking of Google as an AI engine, this shouldn't really matter. And for those of you that have Android phones, Google has an app called Google Lens, which if you take a picture of something, it will actually identify exactly what that is. So Google of today is so much smarter than Google of 10 years ago or 20 years ago, where you were trying to fake it out with having the right images and trying to connect something to a page with alt tags that didn't really matter. Another thing that a lot of people like to talk about when it comes to doing SEO of today is site speed. And the reason people talk about site speed is because it's one of the only defined metrics when it comes to SEO. You can either be good or bad. I'm not a big fan of even caring about site speed. I care most about whether users can engage with the page or not, and not really what sort of metric you have. I had a client in the car rental space, and they were competing with enterprise.com, and enterprise.com had a site speed score of 1. So scores went from 1 to 100. They had 1, the absolute lowest, and I think we all know that they did quite well on their visibility and did quite well as business, probably up until COVID stopped everyone from renting cars. So again, site speed is not something you need to focus on as a metric, and we're going to talk about what you do need to focus on. And finally, my favorite is backlinks. So this is a typical week of my inbox of people sending out links, a request for me to buy links from them. they put big names in here. They'll put a name like Inc., which, if Google has an AI engine, they can know that many posts on Inc. don't really fit with the general genre of what Inc. is publishing. Same goes with a site like IBM. IBM makes enterprise hardware. And if there's a link to a poker site, it's very likely that that link doesn't belong. So an AI engine can easily recognize where links aren't valid. Now, the way that most people would view SEO in this way is that there's this constant seesaw effect between you do all the right things, you have all the right keywords in, you have the right links, you have the right site speed, you have the right content, you're going to go up. And if you don't, you simply go down. And if we're thinking of Google in an AI world, this couldn't be further from the truth. But in a practical sense, none of this even works. And now we'll go through a hypothetical example of how you would do SEO in this world where we're trying to build the right content, build the right links, and see if that even works. So in my hypothetical example, we're doing SEO for a job website. So it's like a Craigslist, it's like Indeed, we have random jobs. This is our task. We want to generate more traffic for the site. So you go to a keyword research tool. In this case, I'm using Rank Ranger, big fan. It's a sort of a Swiss Army knife for keyword research and for other sorts of tracking. I put in what might potentially be the biggest search term in my space. So I'm not looking for any specific job. There's not going to be any volume on that. I'm going to go look for the biggest term, come up with unemployment, 550,000 searches per month. Now I want to find a topic that I'm going to write for unemployment. So I use another keyword tool and I discover that I want to write this article called How to Apply for Unemployment. Now the challenge here is that every other site did the exact same thing I've done. They've gone to a keyword research tool, they found the biggest keyword, they figured out what the biggest topic is, and they've written that exact piece of content. But now I'm smarter than them. I'm going to go look at everyone's backlinks, whoever wrote that content, and I'm going to go get the exact same backlinks, and I'm going to try to one-up them by getting one more backlink or one better backlink, and hopefully I'll be able to outrank all these other sites that have been doing it for a long time. And then finally, I'm going to land on a rank tracking. So I found my keywords unemployment. I'm going to throw it into, again, I'm using Rank Ranger here as an example. And I'm going to report and show how well I'm doing on my keywords based on the fact that I've chosen these keywords. And this is the way I'm going to track my success. Now, aside from the obvious challenges about the way this process works, all of the things I'm doing are limited by my capacity. So if I only have the ability to target 10 keywords per month, because I only have the ability to write 10 pieces of content per month, I can only target, let's say, 120 key phrases in an entire year. So I'm never really going to be able to conquer an entire space. So if my focus on SEO is picking keywords from a keyword research tool, again, that every other competitor can do, and anybody with $99 or $200, whatever any of these tools are going to cost, can do the exact same thing. Anybody with a backlink tool can get the exact same backlinks. Even with all of that, I still can't go after that much content because each piece of content requires that a human write that piece of content. But here are the bigger challenges that I find with all of this. Number one, I'm going after rankings, and I'm reporting on my success using rankings. And with all of my best efforts, it's very possible I'm never going to get that ranking I need. So whether I'm working in-house and my boss is requiring me to get that keyword ranking, whether I'm a consultant and my client is requiring me to get that ranking, whether I just work for myself and I want to get that ranking, it's very possible that my goal will never be achieved because Google is an AI engine and Google's a lot smarter than you just need some raw links and I'm going to rank content on based on the fact that I get links and I have the right content. In many cases I've seen where a piece of content is able to rank without any links at all. Many, many times I've seen them not even using the correct keyword in that content. I have a client that ranks on a key phrase that their top phrase is not even used at all on their website. I've competed against clients or against websites that their backlinks have been deleted years ago, yet they're still able to maintain a top position on the keyword. So much more goes into rankings than just the raw metrics, I think. So if this is my focus, I just may not ever get that ranking, which means from that sense, I will never be successful in my SEO. Even more than that, if I do get that ranking, it's very possible that it won't even matter. So in my example where I'm working on a job site and I'm focusing on unemployment, people that Google the term unemployment are not looking to necessarily get another job. They're looking to get paid by a government for being unemployed, more than likely. They're looking to apply for unemployment. They're looking for what they can do while they're unemployed. If they're actually looking for a job, the unemployment is not the keyword they're going to use. So if I'm looking to generate revenue from the content I've created, this won't help at all. And finally, when I'm focused just on keywords, so keywords are my goal and I need to just make sure that keyword happens. If I'm narrowly focused on what rankings I have for the keywords I've chosen, I'm going to miss out on other keywords that I probably are already generating traffic on. And when it comes to reporting, I'm not going to report on those successes. When it comes to converting and learning, I'm not going to know about those successes. And here's an example from my own website. Not that I rank on these terms, but I do generate traffic from them. So if I was reporting on international SEO, I might miss out that I was ranking on the word international SEO consultant, just because in order to measure my rankings, I would have to feed in every single potential keyword and ordering of potential keywords and plurals of potential keywords. So rather than focus on specific keywords, I recommend against doing something else. And for that, I like to call this product-led SEO. So this is a term that I potentially coined. I haven't seen many other people use it. However, it's not an idea at all that I have created. We're going to walk through a little bit of this. Love to hear any feedback on this concept. I'm in the midst and close to publishing a book on product-led SEO and this approach. And any feedback I get now would be greatly appreciated because I can incorporate that into the book. So I like to think about product-led SEO and doing SEO as reversing the funnel completely. So a typical SEO funnel starts with keywords at the bottom. I'm going to find, like in my example, I'm going to find the keyword that has the highest potential search volume. I'm going to ladder that up to here's how many clicks I think I can get per month. And I can't tell you how many times early on in my career I had to go through this process where I've had to figure out how many monthly searches there are per month. And then from there, calculate what my potential position was. And then from there, calculate what the potential clicks would be. And then what the conversions would be from or clicks on that page. And then the conversions all the way down the line. I want to completely reverse that. I want to focus on my end goal, which is how I'm going to benefit from this traffic, whether it's a lead, whether it's a sale, whether it's a sign up, whatever it is. How am I going to benefit from this traffic? And let's think about the people themselves that are coming into this funnel. And then we're going to back that all the way in to how we would do SEO. So to get there, I focus on the end user. So if it's an early site, and I believe and I hope there's product market fit, I'm going to talk to the potential customers. So if I'm doing SEO for a job site, I'm going to try to identify what the content gaps there are, not using a search tool or not using a keyword research tool, but using actual people to ask them what they might look for in a job site. What are the kinds of things that they're hoping a job site would do for them? What's the content they might want to read? And from there, distill that into how they would interact with the search engine using queries. If a site is already established and is engaging and working with customers, there will likely be customer data on how people are using the site and what are the kind of gaps that there might be and the kinds of content that should be created. And from there, we can understand the words that they should be searching. And finally, my favorite source for getting some of this data is any large company that has actual customer support, whether that is on the phone or whether that's by email or whether that's by social media, has interactions where customers are feeding in information about what it is exactly is they're looking for, what they're hoping to read, what they're hoping to learn, and how it is they found the site. So I've been fortunate that I worked with some companies where they record all that data in Salesforce, and from there, I'm able to turn that into content that magically converts so much better than anything else because I know the customers want it. So to that end, rather than focusing on keyword search volume, I'm focusing on conversions. If there is high potential for a piece of content converting, it really doesn't matter at all what the search volume should be. As I'm prioritizing all the things I need to do, and we may still be limited by capacity, because some of the content actually has to be written, but when I'm going through this prioritization process, I'm using actual conversions and likelihood of conversions and potential dollars that will come from that, rather than just how many people are potentially searching on that per month, which doesn't even imply that they're going to click and I'm going to get that traffic. So my ultimate goal is conversions, and this should be your ultimate goal. Everything you're doing with SEO should be driven by dollars, leads, signups, whatever it is, or app downloads, whatever it is that you're generating some sort of actual business KPI rather than what I like to think of as the fake KPI of just rankings. 3% of 100, which is 3, is a lot better than 0.01% of 10,000, which is 1. So most people are doing the opposite. They're focusing on that keyword that has thousands and thousands of searches per month, which from that they may get traffic from, and from that traffic they're going to get, they may convert. I would rather find the keyword that I'm more than likely going to get the click from because I have great content market fit. And because I have that, I'm actually supplying the perfect answer and matching the intent of what that user is doing. And when they arrive on the page, they're more than likely to convert. So I'm building out conversion funnels based on what people are going to convert from the content rather than conversion funnels on some hypothetical, here's how many people search per month, and here's how many people are going to click through on my site, and then trying to estimate how those people will even flow through the site. And to that end, keyword research tools aren't even accurate nowadays. And I assume we can all notice this if you do your own searches. What the keyword research tools do is they aggregate up different topics. They're not going to give the specific words that people search. So say a keyword search like weather. Now, if you search the word weather, all of us on this call today are going to get different results based on where you are, because when you search weather, Google appends the actual location. So when a keyword research tool tells you what the monthly searches for weather are, it doesn't really match because everyone's actually searching weather and Google's appending that location. And as we get smarter and smarter into voice search, and then as this AI gets smarter, more and more of our searches are going to have different attributes appended. I just recently saw a result, which everyone can try themselves. If you search for a golden retriever, and this is specifically on your phone, search golden retriever on your phone, Google will give you ways that you can append different results to your search. They'll tell you can add diet. When you click on diet in this little knowledge box, it doesn't even change the actual query in the box. They're just giving you different results. So that's you feeding information to Google. You're teaching Google what it is they should be looking for. But even more than that, when you do a voice search, they know what your specific intent is. You can say, I'm hungry, and they can decide that it's right now is dinner time, or right now is lunchtime, or usually want pizza around this time. So keyword research is based on an anonymized person, but none of us are really anonymous anymore. None of us are really doing things that ladder up to those higher search volumes. So rather than focusing on something that has thousands and thousands of searches, focus on something that will more than likely convert. And for that, I like to think of what I call blue ocean SEO. So there's a book which I recommend everyone read called Blue Ocean Strategies. High level blue ocean strategies is an idea of going where not everyone is building businesses. So an example might be you were creating a new taxi company. The only way you'd be able to compete is by having lower prices or maybe more comfortable cars. Uber upset that entire market, or Lyft, or whoever was first, upset that entire market by just creating a brand new business that you suddenly used mobile phones and you didn't get taxis, you got other people's personal cars. And from that, they had no competition. They weren't competing against taxis, they were just something completely different. Moving that on to SEO, so rather than focusing on keyword research, which is something that everyone else is already doing, anyone with enough money to buy a keyword research tool can figure out those are the keywords. I'd rather find the people, know that there's a content gap in what those people are looking for, and build the content out to meet that gap. This will make more sense in one moment. And then as I'm building out that SEO, rather than scaling it by creating more content based on keywords, so a typical SEO roadmap, and most of the time when I work with companies, I build out 18-month, 2-year roadmaps of what we're going to do. So a typical roadmap, if you're not focusing on SEO as a product and doing product-led SEO, is going to consist of, here's my 1,000 keywords, and here's how I'm going to chip away at this list and writing more content matching those keywords. So I much prefer to focus on SEO using utility. So what is it that people want? I have this prioritized list based on conversion. What am I missing from this list? What are the kinds of content I need to create? As I create this content, I'm able to iterate against this and build out more things that users need, rather than here's arbitrary words. I need to make sure that next month I check another 5 words off this list. As I'm doing this, I want to aim for anything that, first of all, is programmatic. So the idea is that we don't want to be limited by capacity. So I don't want to be held to having a writer, and if I have budget, I get another writer. And if I have a very good writer, that writer can write more content for my budget. So I want to do things that are programmatic. So programmatic is a great example. Programmatic is any e-commerce website. We're pulling in descriptions. So as we launch more pages, I can pull in more descriptions coming from the manufacturer and create more pages around that. User-generated content is also programmatic and scalable. So any manual content, again, limited by capacity, is far from scalable. So anytime I'm creating a new product and learning from people about what it is that they need to find on the web, the content absolutely has to be scalable. So for a job website, it may be mashing up different pieces of data. So as I want my website to grow, there's easy directions it can grow rather than I need to write another blog post about what this specific job is like. There will absolutely be a technical lift from this. And I prefer that some of these technical challenges when we're building product actually be quite difficult, because if they're easy, any competitor can easily do this. If all it takes is doing keyword research and writing a blog post, anybody can do keyword research and pay someone to write a blog post. If there's technical lift and figuring out how to get Google to really get through an entire website and find all the content, this makes it more challenging. And this means that you're in a great competitive position. And most of all, once you have done this, you can own it forever. So Amazon is a great example of a company that does programmatic, scalable, product-led SEO. So 10 years ago, whenever Amazon built the current iteration, or 15 years ago, the current iteration of their website, they had no idea that in the year 2020, one of the most popular search items on their site would be surgical gloves and surgical masks. Yet they did the SEO around how can we build a great e-commerce website, and that website, the architecture, the product, the ways you navigate through the website and rank that content on Google, position them for anything from now and into the future that potentially people are going to be looking for. So now I'll talk about some case studies to make this less hypothetical and more practical. So these are examples of companies we all know that do exactly this. So TripAdvisor, if TripAdvisor created today, and you were building it from a content-driven standpoint, you would probably go and research what are the top hotels in New York, what are the top hotels in San Francisco, and write long blog posts with pictures about what it's like to be there. Instead, TripAdvisor created the architecture and the product around having a review on every single hotel, restaurant, attraction in the entire country, and then scaled it up to the entire world. And if one day we colonize Mars, they'll just create a new subdirectory for Mars and all the states and countries within Mars. Zillow is another great example, and Zillow is my favorite example of blue ocean SEO. So when Zillow started, they didn't say, how are we going to compete against all these other websites that have ranking on terms like real estate or mortgage loan? They built content around every single address in the entire country, something that no one else had done, something that if they went to do keyword research on a personal address, there was no search volume. But using, I hope, customer data, they figured out this was something that was lacking, and they built the content and the architecture around that, and look at the success they've had from that. When you look for an address, more than likely they are going to be in that first position. And these are some of my own personal examples of doing this. So Drops is a company. They first were an app, languagedrops.com is a website, but they're an app on the Play Store and the iTunes Store where they help you learn new languages in a fun way. They wanted to build out a website where people can do the same thing. They're obviously competing against Google Translate and every single other dictionary app and website out in the world. So rather than figure out what are the most important words, say in German, or the most important words in Spanish, and build out the pages for that, create content for that, we focused only on architecture. It was a 3-month process to really build out the plan to scale out the entire website. And you can see this traffic growth here. And the keywords they're ranking on are keywords that you would not find any search volume for. By building out the scaled site, we were able to, or Google was able to help us identify where it is that there was no other website that was ranking those terms. And examples are people searching for Hawaiian language. Like, who even knew there was Hawaiian language that people were curious about? Not sure that very many people speak it, but yet there were no other dictionary sites that did it. So just by having this architecture, we may not be in the top positions for German, although those pages exist. We're in those top positions for Hawaiian and Tagalog, which is in the Philippines. So it was all focused on the product and all focused on architecture. Another example is a company I work with named Fishbowl. So Fishbowl is online reviews, very similar to Glassdoor, on consulting agencies. lots of Q&A. So focus there wasn't, again, on how can we rank on specific topics and specific employers, is really from a product and engineering standpoint, how do we build out something that can allow Google to discover every piece of content and identify a potential keyword and not just rank on something long tail. And you can see this growth here. And finally, my favorite example was I partnered with a company that they had a Q&A database that somehow was just sitting in emails and in Salesforce. And by exposing this, you can see the number of impressions. They started with a high base, so they don't have the same spike, but the number of impressions they're driving by just pulling out that Q&A that was hidden. And they're able to rank on some amazing terms that no one else was targeting because it was so tied to exactly what people were looking for. So now to dive into specific tactics for my last couple minutes on how to do product-led SEO. So first of all, when people focus on SEO, they're usually focusing on non-brand, which are, for anyone not familiar, are things that do not use the word, your brand name in it. I'm not as focused on this. I just want to generate traffic that converts. But in order to do this, you should really go into your Search Console, which is my favorite tool, and understand what your brand versus non-brand split is. For many sites, they'll be surprised to know that most of their traffic is branded, a lot more than they thought. When I was working at SurveyMonkey, when I first joined, we had 90% brand. By the time I left, I was able to bring that down to 40%. I think for a SaaS company with a well-known brand, 60% brand versus non-brand split is okay. For a non-well-known company, you should be much closer to 20% branded traffic. But either way, the first thing you want to do really is go in and know what your breakdown of brand versus non-brand to know where your upside is. Your brand upside, of course, will be capped by the size of your brand. Your non-brand upside should be infinite. Q&A. So if you are engaging with users, then start building out Q&A. Find out what their questions are asking. This will be long tail, and you'll be surprised at how much traffic you can generate from essentially what users are already doing for you. Years ago, I worked with Quora. I mean, it's amazing the traffic they can generate on keywords that no one would have ever thought that people are looking for. Search suggestions are an absolute great way to find content you should rank on for brand or non-brand. So rather than go into a keyword tool and say, these are the things I need to rank on because, and build content around because people are searching for it, go into search suggestions and you need to build this content because actual humans are looking for it right now. So if it's your brand, make sure that you have a piece of content for every single one of these keywords that show up in search suggest. You'll notice there will be things like if your brand sucks, I hate your brand, refund brand. There's no reason you shouldn't be creating content for that. If it's a non-branded topic, same idea. Anything here, it's a great thing that you know that there's demand for, and Google is telling you in real time that people are looking for it. Going into your Google Search Console and looking at your search query, mentioned earlier that a client that's generating most of their traffic off a keyword they didn't use on their website, this is where you're going to find it. So go in Google Search Console. If you don't have it set it up immediately. And this is where you'll learn the kinds of things that Google thinks your website is fitting on, the kinds of topics that Google's slotting you into. I worked with a client a while ago. Google thought they were an adult website. This is the only way that you'd know when you see the kinds of keywords you're ranking on. So go in here and look for ideas on things you can expand on, and make sure you're answering all the questions that people are sort of asking your website via search queries. And finally, when it comes to links, I much prefer to focus on PR rather than just raw links. So don't really care about domain authority. I care more about links that people are actually going to click on. And we're partnered with an agency named Adigi. Happy to introduce anybody to them. They have great relationships from a PR standpoint with journalists that understand SEO and are able to get content that people are going to read and talk about and likely click through. And when you do that, you'll be amazed at what a couple links will do for you rather than needing those 100 domain authority, 50 links that no one on websites no one even knew existed, or the domain authority 90 websites on content that no one's ever going to read. So rather than just focus on links, I focus on content people are going to read, and that's the kind of content that will actually help your website to rank. And lastly, I focus on SEO purely as a product. So to that end, I have a project management spreadsheet, happy to share. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me, and I'll give you this spreadsheet where you can start understanding and prioritizing all of your SEO tasks based on this rather than just keyword research, and happy to share any tool recommendations. So just to quickly summarize, You can't fool the robots. Google's an AI engine. They're doing things that are put life and death in their hands. So when it comes to getting some fake links or stuffing in content, they're so much smarter than we can ever be. Next, rather than focusing on the search engine and how to trick the algorithm, focus on the dollars. Don't worry about what keyword search volume is. Just worry about what will likely convert. And lastly, think big. If all you're doing is focusing on a piece of content that you think has X amount of searches per month, and then you need to go to another keyword that has X amount of searches per month, that's not what you should do. Think about how you can create 1 million pages of a website that really answer all the questions that everyone in your entire category are asking. And that's entirely possible. And whenever I have done that, I've been amazed at how it ends up being actually easy to do. And it's so much easier to do that than just pin all my hopes on ranking a couple pieces of content. And please be in touch. Sign up for my email list. I'd love to share early copies of my book once that's out, and happy to answer any questions. And now I'll pass it back to Lloyd and over to Josh.
Awesome. That was fantastic. We'll take questions at the end, so feel free to bombard the Q&A tab and continue to do that. Up next is Josh, one of my favorite people on the planet. Josh, looking forward to hearing from you. Go on.
Good to be here. Let's do it. Cool. So just a little bit about who I am. So I'm the former head of growth for several venture-backed startups. Also as the head of growth for a venture firm, and current associate at 10X Capital, where we invest in companies. And then I also own several companies, including the product company, Squibbler, and Product Manager HQ, which I acquired about 4 months ago. And those have all been really fun. All those companies are built on SEO. Product Manager HQ, we came in and they were at about 20,000 visitors a month. And we did a whole website redo, as well as doing a complete 301 redirect of all their current URLs, which is a big process to say the least. And there's a lot of SEO strategy that goes into something like that, and also setting the right expectations. So let's dive into some of the simple strategies you can use to monopolize search results, and we're going to have a little fun. So here's an example. If you Google product manager interview questions on the second page, and most of these posts are pretty recent, but all these pieces right here actually lead to Product Manager HQ sales funnel. So you see my site is first, and then another site of mine is second, and the pminterview.com is an affiliate for productmanagerhq.com, and then we have productmanagerhq.com. So these are some of the cool things you could do with monopolizing search. With that said, you actually have to make sure it's profitable at the end of the day. You can't just create a bunch of websites, rank content, and not have it go anywhere. So one of the big things is understanding that over time, what Google gears to is the most profitable sales funnel. So it's very much supply and demand and meeting that at equilibrium. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean. So here's an example of how we're able to drive revenue. So when someone goes to my site, they see this pop-up come up, and they don't really get an understanding that the blog post is even written by me, because this pops up right away. And then they put in their email, and they're actually taken directly to productmanagerhq.com. And this gets over 200 plus additional emails for PMHQ. And about 4 months ago, PMHQ got about 600 emails a month, to give you an idea. And these are people who are our target audience. People are interested in learning more about the PM interview process, how to build a resume, and how to build a career in product management. And by having these sites and sending them to Product Manager HQ, we're able to build our email list, build our authority, and ultimately drive more sales. Because I would say about 40% of our sales do come from our email list. So one of the things I'm really passionate about is Medium. Now, Medium in the SEO world is probably the most looked down upon site. People talk about it in the most negative ways, but one of the things it does do is it does enable you to double rank for content and write your own reviews. So what do I mean by this? So let's say you were to reach out to a blogger today because you own a software company, and you said, hey, I want to write 10x best software posts, and I want to list my piece of software first. They're probably going to ask you to pay them quite a bit of money or just refuse you outright. And the problem with that is now you can only use your site for ranking, right? Unless you have a third-party site. But with Medium, you can actually post on this site and you don't need to establish that partnership relationship. Though partnership relationships are very valuable, you're able to skip that process here. And Medium, your content ranks relatively fast compared to a new website. So if you were to create a new website from scratch, and let's say you had a book writing software and the new website was bookswritingsoftwarereviews.com, it would take you a while to rank that site just because it's new to Google and you have to build that authority. But Medium already has that authority. So you can write review posts that rank right away. So here's an example. What I do is I go and use this tool called Ahrefs, and I'm going to see if Medium talks about a certain software. So I know my good friend Chris is on this call. He runs a company in the CMS software space. And I see that Medium doesn't really have any good options for CMS software. They have a post that doesn't have a lot of content in it. It's very easy to outrank. And somehow it's ranking, but not really well. So I do know that if I put a piece of content on medium.com, it will rank for CMS software, and if that piece is optimized for it. So that may look like, 8 best CMS software in 2020. So what we go ahead and do is we put that post on Medium and we let it rank, and then it drives revenue back to our site because we're listed first. And you don't have to build a partnership with a third-party website outside of Medium at the end of the day. Saves a lot of time and is very much worth doing. And it's a low-hanging fruit that almost anybody could do in the space if you're looking to have more reviews on your software or product, whatever that may be. So we do this a lot for e-commerce companies as well. And part of the thing is if you're double ranking for keywords, one of the highest source of conversions often comes from referrals. So if someone reads this post, and let's say it's written by one of the writers on your staff or a freelance writer who you paid, they're recommending your software as number one. And because that recommendation is there, they're going to go to your website from that recommendation already in a purchase-ready mode. And it's much better than if they went straight to Google and went straight to your website. Because as we know, with any sales funnel, people like to review their options. And when they go to a list post, they feel like they've reviewed options before taking that next step. So you're almost cutting down the sales cycle when they get to that Medium post. And Medium does provide a good amount of SEO value, and there's ways to do it today with Medium, and they provide features to do so, such as being able to have a good title preview. Title previews matter a lot when you're trying to rank content. If you don't have the right title preview, it sometimes doesn't matter how many backlinks you have, how fast your site is, and all those metrics really just don't matter if people aren't clicking through. So the fact that you can go and edit your title preview and your meta description is super, super helpful. And that enables you to rank a lot faster. So here's an example of how I did it. I wrote a post on the best book writing software, and I have a profile called That Writer. So people don't even know it's me, but at the end of the day, I'm driving traffic to my own site through Medium and listing my product as number one. I would say that this is a very clever technique and it works, and I do this for a lot of spaces, and it's very low-hanging fruit to do. In terms of partnerships though, partnerships help a lot more. So this is stuff if you're a bootstrap founder and you want to get reviews up right away, highly recommend it, but partnerships are even better. And I'm about to show you what that looks like. So here's an example of a partnership. So I'm partnered with a company called devteam.com, devteam.space. And I send them a lot of traffic that converts because I'm able to outrank a lot of companies in the space, such as Upwork, TopTal, etc. And how I do it is I do it through this idea of context. So you look at that headline, it says 15 best sites to hire freelance developers in June 2020. Now, what TopTal uses and Upwork a lot of times is 8 best, top app developers to hire, rather than the best sites. But what you have to understand is that Google is smart enough to understand the sales funnel that goes into purchasing. So they know that if someone is going to make a decision to hire a developer, that the sales cycle is actually a bit longer. And it's crazy to say that Google can recognize sales funnels, but it is that smart today that it can see the entire sales cycle to a large degree. And they know that people actually want to look at sites and understand what are the best sites to hire developers before looking at a top list of developers. And knowing that, I was able to rank for hire a developer online in just 2 months, a very competitive keyword. So if you can understand the sales cycle behind people going to Google and actually purchasing, then you can create context that outranks people who've owned space there for years. And once you do that and you have a good partnership to actually drive revenue from these posts, then things get even better. So this is what a post looks like. We have the affiliate post and we just send revenue straight from the sidebar image. And when we do this, we list them as the best result. We've used them before. I do think they're great, but it's hard to use 15 different sites to hire developers. That costs a lot of money. So we go with the notion that, hey, we've used them before and we have a great affiliate partnership, let's promote them. And not only that, one of the things that we know is in order for someone else to outrank us, their sales funnel has to be better. So for example, if TopTal wants to outrank us and they have to go purchase a third-party site or have a partnership with a site and have a review that says 15 best sites and list TopTal first. If TopTal can make more money from that post than we can from this post with our partnership, then they can reinvest more money into SEO, including backlinks, whatever it needs to take to outrank us. So if you're doing affiliate marketing over the long run, you have to ensure that your sales funnel and how much money you can make is ideally just as much, or if not more, than the people in your space competing against you. Because if you can't make more money based on your sales funnel, then eventually they'll reinvest more money to outcompete you. And that's just how it works with SEO and hitting that equilibrium. So let's talk a little bit about speed. Site speed is important. Obviously, there are some cases where site speed has no effect, but a lot of times what I've seen is that site speed can have immediate effect, especially as of recently when in March, Google dinged, I would say, I don't know how many sites it dinged, but a lot of dings when it said, we're gonna focus on mobile indexing first. So if your mobile speed is not up to par, we're going to ding you and basically hit you on your traffic. And that's what we saw. So when looking at this graph, you'll notice, so Google hit this site and they lost more than half their traffic in the span of 15 days, just from this site speed. And how did we know that? Well, we simply just looked into Google Search Console. So when we looked into Google Search Console, we noticed that there was 151 errors that needed to be improved. So this wasn't a guessing game where like, okay, this makes sense. But the thing about it so as soon as that happened, what they did is they reacted and they let go of their SEO team, which is fine because their SEO team didn't understand that speed is important for certain websites. Not all websites, and a lot of times it depends on your sales funnel like we're talking about before. So if Google deems that that speed is not important for your sales funnel, it will not consider it a factor when ranking your website. But for some websites, it does. And it's important to at least know whether speed is a factor for yours. So once we improved it, this is the difference in results. So they went from 80 to 180 leads a month. They went from 4 clients to 9 clients a month. And then $1 million ARR to $2 million ARR. And all that happened in the span of a month, to give you an idea, just from a site speed improvement. And one of the things that we did to improve the site speed is we went ahead and we took all the plugins that they were using and we custom coded all of them. And that's a really painful process. And especially if you're a startup founder and you don't have the ability to do that, it can cost you a lot of money. Ideally, you have some technical experience if you're using WordPress and you can hire the right person to do that for you. And it's definitely a hurdle. What I would recommend is ideally going about the process of it like month over month and just making different milestones of improving your site speed to get to that benchmark of having optimal site speed, because it does cost quite a bit of money if you want to custom code all your plugins. Now, let's talk about backlinks. Backlinks are a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of different ways to get backlinks, everything from paying for backlinks, reaching out and just asking them, saying you have a better resource, whatever it may be. But oftentimes what you'll see is there are certain campaigns that just simply scale. I'll show you what that looks like. So here's an email that we sent out that got us over 200 plus backlinks. And this is great for the software space and great for e-commerce as well. If you are in these spaces, understand that you have leverage, you have product, and you have ideally software that people want. And you can find out pretty quickly through emailing whether you have software that people want. And if they want it, they may likely say, hey, we'll allow you to do a guest post. We'll like to have that software in exchange for, put a link up on our website on this post that talks about, let's say it's a certain type of software. That way you ensure that one, you get a relevant placement, and you can look at all the data behind everywhere you're placing. But in this talk, we're just specifically talking about having leverage. And one of the big things about having leverage is understanding who they listen to. So for Lumen 5, who people listen to in this market, especially content marketers, is Social Media Examiner. This is one of the big publications that they follow. So if Social Media Examiner says something about us, we can use that in an email to thousands of people to use as leverage. And that's what we did here. So testing this email would not have worked if we didn't have that little note by Social Media Examiner giving us the credibility. But once we had that, we were able to scale this over a span of just 3 months to get 200 plus backlinks. So if you have a software company, this is something you can very easily do. It's not hard to get emails either. Use a tool like hunter.io, and then maybe a tool like Bright Verify to go ahead and verify all those emails. And you have to ask yourself, what leverage do you have? Oftentimes it's going to be product. Oftentimes it may even be your ability to write really well. So if you have any credibility within any scene, any quotes around you and say, hey, this is what I've done in this scene for the last 5 years. I'd love to write for your publication, and because I can contribute this unique experience, this unique perspective, and that can get you a lot of placements. So always ask yourself, what unique leverage do you have, rather than just sending out blatant emails asking for backlinks, especially if they're not offering any value. Never send an email to somebody else where you're pretending to offer value, such as I think this would be a great resource for your blog post that is not relevant at all. Never want to do that. If you're doing that, that is something that's not going to scale, and it's something that's not going to build your company at the end of the day. You may be able to get your domain banned because you sent too many emails and most of them went to spam, but that's about it. So these are the results. So in about the span of a year, Lumen 5 went from about 25,000 visitors a month to a little over 1 million visitors a month projected, just from simple backlinking campaigns and putting up around 30 landing pages. So that was it. It wasn't a complex strategy that we used. We understood what leverage we had. We understood what pages we needed to create in order for conversion, and we just scaled that. And I want to say it was more complicated than that, but I would be lying to you. And oftentimes SEO can be that easy if you do understand your leverage, especially when reaching out and getting backlinks, because backlinks are one of the hardest things to get in SEO and often cost you just as much as writing the content in the first place. So one of the big things is to know where you're linking, right? Most people who have content don't actually know what content converts to their site. So for example, you may have 100 blog posts and you're like, okay, we get in 20 leads a month from these blog posts. Now, one of those blog posts may be sending you 15 leads a month, and the rest may be sending you 5. And this is a problem that I see across almost every company that I work with, is that they don't have enough granular data to understand where their conversions come in from. So this is an example. I had this client, they had around 70,000 new users a month. And what I noticed is that they also had around 150 blog posts. And they were putting out new blog posts every month with the idea that all their leads were coming in from blog posts. And when I looked at the data, it was true. I said, wow, all your blog posts send you most of your leads. It seems like you should be producing more blog posts on these specific topics where these leads are coming in from. But as soon as we set up complete attribution, where we understood where their customers came from, we found out that their customers were coming from a couple pages, so just service pages primarily. They only received 1,000 visitors a month. So their 64,000 visits a month on their blog only sent them, I would say, about 20% of their customers. And that's where they're double downing on, rather than these service pages that sent them 1,000 visitors a month. So if you're not looking at your analytics and you don't understand the full attribution, oftentimes you're making the wrong decision. It's very, very hard to keep producing content if you cannot track it back to, hey, does this provide ROI? And the worst part about it is that, oftentimes you're seeing leads and you're saying, okay, well, chances are that's probably going to turn into a customer. But as your company grows, you'll find out that there's certain pieces of content that convert, and it makes sense. Like, for example, a service page. What do service pages rank for? So they often rank for, let's say, CMS software would be a service page, or hire a developer, that's a service page. Things with direct intent. People are looking to buy. And if you have an how-to post, it's not necessarily service-oriented, but it's close. But what's the difference in actual customers it's going to bring in? And even though a lot of this content, again, gets tons and tons of visitors, views, that really doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. Like, I'd rather have a blog with 1,000 visitors a month that brings in 80% of the clients that I'm going to get than the situation that I saw here. So let's jump into Google Optimize. So one of the things that you can do with SEO is, one, you can bring in traffic, you can bring in new customers, but if you don't optimize your site, then none of that's going to happen. And I would like to say that SEO is the end-all be-all in terms of getting people to convert, but simply not true. Like, you need growth skills and you need to be testing. So I recommend always be testing whether certain buttons are leading to conversions, whatever it may be, and setting this up through what's called Google Tag Manager. So setting up events and understanding where people are clicking is huge for you, and what's going to convert based off different segments, and also personalizing the journey. So one of the things I've been working on a lot recently is saying, okay, if someone goes to this blog post about, let's say, product manager interview questions, and then they go to our homepage, do we just give them the regular homepage copy, or do we personalize it for that journey? So SEO is about understanding your entire funnel and then personalizing it so it leads to conversion. And that requires some growth skills. But if you're an early stage company with, let's say, 50 employees or less, this is something you can focus on in your role. And this is something you can probably get a little leeway to go and do. If you're a bigger company, you're definitely going to struggle. But at smaller stages, you can work on all these things and set it up so you have a very strong foundation for your entire customer journey. So here's something that I created. I don't want to say I created it. I got it from another SEO strategist, and it's been super helpful. So when it comes to SEO, I like to think 36 months ahead of time and say, will this provide me value in 36 months? That sounds absolutely crazy, but I think it's something you have to do. And what we do here with this link building ROI sheet, and you can email me after, I have my email on the last side, and to get this sheet, enables you to project how much revenue you're going to make from having backlinks pointing to certain posts. Now, I would say it's not like 100%, right? Nothing in SEO is 100%. It's all based on correlation. So by having that revenue per visitor and being able to plug it into this spreadsheet, what you get at the end of the day is an understanding of how much traffic and how much value and how much revenue you're going to get by building links if you know your cost per link as well. So this is a little bit hard. Most people do not know their cost per link. It takes a lot of experience in SEO and actually having really good team in place, maybe connections, whatever that may be, to understand your average cost per a link. And for me, it took about 2 years to understand my average cost per link is about $90. And then I say, how many links can I get a month? And what is the domain authority that I'm trying to close so I can rank my pieces better? And through that, I can understand, okay, this is the amount of revenue that I'm going to bring in. So this is actually a real example here that I did for a client. And as you can see, I was able to project, just based off understanding their revenue per visitor, that we would be able to get an additional $451,000 a month over the span of 36 months by getting additional links to certain pages. So absolutely crazy. But if you work in SEO, and if maybe you're talking to investors and you're trying to get them to understand and buy into your vision, it's an absolute must that you're able to do very strong projections in SEO. Even if there's a lot of variables that go into SEO and it's not always exact, it's important that you can at least have clarity in discussing with them so they have some understanding of where you're trying to go. So here's some fun things that I'm up to recently. So one of the things I've been doing is ranking for Uber Eats promo code, Airbnb coupon code, because of the whole COVID situation has me a little cooped up. So I was like, what can I get for free? So here, I just want to show you some of the cool things that you can do with SEO in terms of actually enabling you to get exactly what you want through, whether it be like affiliate marketing or whether it's just free Airbnb for life or Uber Eats for life. So I also have this for a couple other coupon codes. And what I did is I just dove into Ahrefs and I said, can I even rank for this? Turns out you can. So I started about 2 months on this project, 2 months ago on this project, and my Uber Eats coupon code page has almost hit the first page for that keyword. And best part about it is I'm already having referrals coming in. And then same with Airbnb, it's moving up in rankings and a couple other coupon pages. And it was a total side project, but when I looked at it in terms of ROI, having free travel and free food for the next maybe 10 years of my life is some huge ROI there. It's very hard to calculate actually how much that is. But it's just fun things you could do through SEO, right? And that's why I love it. It's you look at your life and you say, what are things that I want for free? Now, can I become an affiliate marketer of that? Can I sell it? And can I help promote it? And then you get the product for free and you make money from doing it over a continuous amount of time until someone outranks you eventually. So, leaving off this topic, one of the things that I just want to share with you is that SEO is a lot of building not just an ecosystem of better sales funnels, but also having fun. If you can't have fun while you're doing it, then there's really no point to doing it. So find out what you want for free. Find out what ecosystem you're trying to build around you, whether that's to have multiple companies in the product management space, or whether that's to have the best company in the CMS space, whatever that may be, and figure out how to build that ecosystem stronger and tie it in together, because it's all very, very possible, especially if you have, one, a great sales funnel, two, better product market fit, and you understand your leverage and can reach out with that leverage and start conversations around it. So I want to leave you guys there and happy to jump into any questions now.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Can we have Eli back on and let's take some questions. First thing, there's a lot of questions around tools. So let's bucket that, right? Any low budget or free tools you recommend for SEO, from like keyword research to tracking attribution and so on? What are your thoughts there?
So Google Search Console is my favorite all-around tool, and it's absolutely free. So I like Google Search Console because it's like Google gave you access to their own Google Analytics. So the coolest thing you get from Search Console you're not going to get from any other tool is Google's data. So leaving aside clicks, which if anybody's trying to marry clicks with what they see in their analytics platform, whether it's Google Analytics or logging or anything, it's not going to match up, never. However, what you can see from Google Search Console is the number of impressions you're getting on Google, and that's despite whether people click through or not. So you can see your potential visibility. And what I like from that is you can see the kinds of keywords people search in real time. And I mentioned some of the clients I worked with. So I've worked with brands that are verbs. So like WordPress is a verb. I worked with SurveyMonkey. I worked with GetAround. So kinds of big brands. And what's fascinating is to see how many people actually search that word versus what the keyword research tools say. And it's not even close. Like this is what Google's telling me the amount of people that search that brand per month, which are big enough that people create all sorts of things around those brands, and it will never match up the keyword research tools say. So like from apples to apples, like Google's inaccurate for every single website, and you're never going to get that, from any other tool that you pay for. And then, Josh mentioned Ahrefs. I'm a big fan of Ahrefs. For crawling, I like OnCrawl, and Rank Ranger is sort of like this Swiss Army knife, also fairly cheap, where you can get, research, tracking. Local is something that's pretty interesting there. And if anybody wants to ping me, and I'll, get you better deals on any of these things.
Awesome. Josh, how about you? And for everyone listening on the call, what we'll do is we'll put together a list of tools and the resources that Josh and Eli provided, and we'll put it as a part of the recap blog post.
And so one of the ones that wasn't mentioned is ClearScope. ClearScope is one of my favorite tools. It relies primarily on correlation analysis. So it looks at what's ranking, let's say in the top 30, and it says, and it's coming out with a lot of new features which are going to be really cool. So for example, if I write a post that's about R&D taxes and I don't link to the IRS, it's not going to rank me. Now I'm going to be confused. I'm like, why isn't Google ranking me? and it's because I didn't link to the IRS. So ClearScope is coming out with a lot of that type of correlation analysis, which will tell me that data. So the science is getting very, very exact in how to rank. And it's not always right. There's no end-all be-all tool. It's like, especially when it comes to like traffic numbers, that's one thing that I don't know if there's ever going to be a tool that has really good traffic numbers. I've been hoping for that for a while. But in terms of correlation analysis, that's become pretty popular over the last year and a half, and ClearScope is my go-to tool for that.
Awesome. And you better be linking to Boast as well for R&D taxes.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of questions on backlinking, like, determining domain authority, PR, and also any hacks or tips to get a large volume of backlinks from good websites.
So diving into this, one of the things I realized is the best way to do it is just to understand how much you should be paying for backlinks. Backlinks are going to cost you money, like one way or another, whether that's having people reach out, whether that's paying writers, whether that's paying for guest posts. And sometimes if you have a great product, there are other ways to get it. But if you do not have a great product, or maybe you've exhausted reaching out and trying to exchange product, then oftentimes you're going to have to pay for it. So one is to understand the data behind actually ranking for a certain keyword, whatever that may be, and how much revenue that's going to bring in, and making projections around that. And then working your way backwards and saying, okay, now that I know that, I can spend this much money on backlinks to get there. And what is the best way for me to do that? And that's then going to give you, a number of options, and hopefully a number of options. Or it may just give you an option to say like, okay, we got to spend quite a bit of money on paying for these links. And I know there's a lot of talk in the SEO world about how paying for links is sort of looked down upon, but in some way you're always paying for links, whether that's through human capital or literally just, exchanging money.
So I'll echo that you do always have to pay for links, but the cost is just divided differently. So I mentioned a PR agency earlier. So they work on retainer. That's another one. Ping me, I'll get you an intro, and they'll be nicer to you. Named is Adigi, and you pay them a retainer, and they're getting links. Which, if you divide the amount of links you get for that retainer, you're paying per link. I've also done some really successful campaigns. This is at SurveyMonkey, around surveys and creating content that went viral and then got a bunch of links. So in order to make that content go viral, I had to advertise for it on Facebook, and there was a total cost for my campaign, which came down to a cost per link. The part of your question was around domain authority and deciding the value of links. So I think it's domain authority is just kind of a raw score, and I don't necessarily trust that for deciding whether a link's good. So like you might say, let's say inc.com is domain authority, I don't know, let's say 80. But if you get a link that Google will never find, it's completely worthless. Whereas if you get a link on another site that Google's going to find and other people are going to link to, that link is far more valuable. So there's sort of like a logical component to this. I will say the best link I ever got was, did this a couple times. I got it from the White House. So 2 ways I got the link. One was, this is at SurveyMonkey. One was SurveyMonkey did a partnership with the White House, and the White House linked to the wrong page. So I was able to recover that link by building a page for the page that the White House linked, and then use that as magical link juice to just kind of run through the entire site. And the other time I got a link from the White House is this was the Commerce Secretary, or somebody at the White House ripped off a post that I'd participated in writing at SurveyMonkey, and they backlinked the post they ripped off. So they made it look like SurveyMonkey had authored something on the White House, and that's pretty powerful. Link too.
That is pretty powerful. There were a bunch of questions around site speed, and how does Google determine site speed is important for your website, and how do you guys factor that in?
I think there are so many variables that go into Google determining whether site speed is important that there is no one variable, and I wish I could say that there was. I think sales cycle is important, and Google's really understanding your sales cycle in terms of, do people go to your website and purchase right away? Do they need to look at like 3 review posts before they purchase? And understanding that, and I think there is correlation there. I'm still trying to figure it out, but what I do is I just optimize for site speed, because I know that some sites it's important for, but some sites Google doesn't care about when it comes to site speed. So it's like you do the best you can, just so you can say like, hey, I did everything right. That's going to correlate to better SEO at the end of the day, even though Google may not factor in some of those things. This is what it is. It's a hard game.
So I know there was a comment that said Josh and I disagreed on site speed, and we don't. I was referring to site speed at larger companies. So like when I work with larger companies that have their own data center or have dedicated hosting at, they have their own, quasi data centers with Amazon, they're as fast as they can be. Like they're the largest sites in their space. And it's impossible necessarily to make their sites better. And the example I use when I was talking is enterprise.com, like they're as fast as they're going to be, and Google's not really going to ding enterprise because their site's too slow. So I think there's like a baseline of site speed. If you're slower than everyone in your query set, then Google might boot you, but they're only going to boot you if you're on like a mobile connection and on a mobile browser. But otherwise on desktop, it's not going to matter that much. But I would care more about like what your user experience is. If your site is so slow that when people go to like load it and it just doesn't load, your site speed's too slow. You're not going to convert anybody. Like no one's gonna be able to get through your shopping cart funnel or whatever it is you're trying to do. So use the tools, but I feel like if your site is too slow, like you know it. You don't really need a tool to tell you that you're a 50 versus a 60.
Awesome, yeah. And somebody was recommending a website called fastorslow.com. I'll take a look at that and add it to the list of things, resources. There was a bunch of chatter around Medium, right? How do you guys think about Medium, and especially if you're writing a blog post on your website and then you're sort of replicating that content across Medium or Quora, other websites? How does Google view that? How do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, well, I'll start with Quora. So one of the things that I've noticed, I used to be a very active writer on Quora, is that it works until other people keep writing answers and push your answer down, which I guess is the plus and minus of it. So if you don't have a popular topic that doesn't have a lot of contributors, I mean, maybe it'd be, so let's say it's like some one-off in software and no one else is writing, then it could be really good and your answer could be up there for quite some time and could rank relatively well in search. But if it's in something competitive with a lot of writers, then your content's going to get pushed down. I think replicating word for word exactly, stuff that you've written before, you should just not bother in doing that. I don't think that helps SEO at all. I don't have a lot of great examples and case studies where I've seen it help SEO, so it's not something I would do.
I look at content as an investment. So I always recommend against taking your content investment and putting it on someone else's website. Like one day Medium could run out of money and decide that they're just going down, and all that money you invested in writing good content on Medium just disappears. So if you're using some sort of strategy to promote the content on your website, that's great. But like to build up a presence on someone else's website that they could change the rules or disappear never seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah, definitely. My question was more around, or some of the questions were more around replicating the content, right? Like you take it, you word for word, put it on Medium, you put it on LinkedIn, you put it on Quora, and you call it a day. What is the benefit of that? Who knows what the benefit is, but I wonder if there's any harm to doing that, having duplicate content across multiple websites.
It depends on the site. Like Medium, I think has good authority. So if you duplicate on Medium, they're going to outrank you. LinkedIn kind of taught Google that most of the content, most of the articles written on Google aren't very high quality. So like rarely will you bump into LinkedIn articles. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I never bump into them where like the ranking URL is LinkedIn. So Google has decided that LinkedIn's articles are very low quality. So I would say the reverse is true there. Put on your site and duplicate on LinkedIn, you won't hurt yourself. You're just hurting LinkedIn. But if the site's higher quality, Medium and duplicating on your site, Medium will rank.
Definitely.
I think it also depends on the niche that you're in. If it's very competitive, then it's already hard enough to rank like, one piece of content. So maybe sometimes putting on Medium and duplicating the content there is not enough. So if you are going to put enough effort into like having a separate piece on Medium, you might as well put in some effort into having backlinks actually go to that Medium post to rank it. Which, yeah, it's interesting how that works. And I don't think enough people take advantage of Medium in terms of like at least opportunity costs. Like focus on your own site first, but then for reviews, it's definitely worth it. I wish more people would do it. It's just an easy way, because otherwise you're sort of like a slave to like Capterra or Software Advice, whatever these review sites are, and they could have something just easily rank on the first page of Google with maybe like 1 or 2 backlinks on Medium. That says that they're the best option. It is a little bit of a workaround. I don't know if that's going to last forever. Medium is pretty friendly when it comes to affiliate links and promoting your own products, and they don't really take down those posts. So, but I don't know if that's going to be same way forever. Similar to what Eli's saying is you don't own that at the end of the day. So one day they wake up and they're like, hey, you can't do this anymore, and it's gone. So
definitely some questions around physical products. Say you had to rank for a company that's doing physical products or a healthcare company with just a website. What are some top 2 or 3 things you would look at on day 1, day 5, day 30? You said you were selling soups or like, I don't know, selling like gum.
So I think, yeah, I mean, gum or soups, it's one thing is understanding like the sales cycle that goes into it, and saying, do people go to the website and buy this right away? Is it like immediately transactional, right? So some things people go through SEO and then they have to hop on a demo, and then that sales cycle may take like 2 months. So what I asked myself would be, what type of content is immediately actionable for, let's say it's a physical product at a low price, right? And oftentimes I see for like e-commerce companies, there's often, I would say like 3 keywords that they need to rank for, like per SKU, so like per product, that will bring them in revenue. And everything else you just ignore pretty much. And I want to say it's, more complicated than that, but it's not true. It's actually hard to keep it simple because everybody wants to make it more complicated. It's like you want to rank for, hey, health benefits of keto shakes, and then buy keto shakes. And then the last keyword may be, best keto shakes. And that may be it, right? But it's also knowing that not every keyword around that is going to bring in revenue, and you really have to trim it down. Like what is keto shakes is not going to bring you in any revenue probably. Maybe worth a retargeting audience, maybe, but it should be something you definitely don't focus on for a while.
So I like physical products more than digital products because you can actually ask people how, like from a product standpoint, you can figure out what are the triggers. Like if you said soup, like you're optimizing for soup, like you can know what it is people are doing. Like, are they making soup because it's quick, or are they making soup because like you don't need a lot of equipment? So like you know like what they get out of it and what they're looking for in it, rather than like a digital product, like you kind of put it up there and you don't know product market fit as well. So that would be my approach. From an attribution standpoint, like either you ship products or you don't ship products. It's not like a digital product where like you have to follow through. Do people download it? Like, do they use it? Are they going to churn? Like, I feel like those make it more complicated. And attribution is always going to be a mess for SEO. So I would say like, if you can't track it back to the source, at least track it to like a metric you can track. So like, did they put it in the cart? Did like they put a credit card in? And then whether like they ate the soup or not is hard for you to know. Whether they returned the soup or not is hard for you to know. But like, try to get as close as possible to an actual conversion rather than just traffic.
Awesome. And you guys are both heavy on WordPress. There's some questions around recommendations for SEO tools, plugins on WordPress.
Yeah, ideally use as little plugins as possible. That is my recommendation there. Plugins should slow down your site a lot. I mean, even we'll custom code sharing plugins just so we don't have to deal with like the extra load time. And yes, someone pointed out Yoast. I think Yoast is valuable to some extent, but if you're knowledgeable enough and technical enough, you can actually go and do everything that Yoast can do for you. So it really depends on your technical skill, because every plugin you add is going to slow down your site to some degree. And also you have to ask yourself, how important is speed that you need to be optimizing for? So there are a lot of variables that come from it, but just something you do want to check off, in terms of speed optimization, just to see if there is correlation, if Google thinks it's important for your site. It is a little bit painful. So in terms of plugins, Yoast is a good one. But besides that, I don't know of a lot more other ones that I use for a WordPress.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yoast is good, but like you should customize the basics yourself because Yoast is kind of heavy and does slow down the site.
Awesome. And then there was a question specifically for Eli around the product-led SEO model, and it would be great to have Josh weigh in on it. You talked about the step one being a survey. How does that work for companies with no audience at all, right?
So that's my entire point around product-led SEO. If there is no audience, then you shouldn't invest at all or even a second in your site. Like, you should know what you're creating for real people and not like some pie in the sky like whether it's a physical product or a digital product or just a piece of content, like there has to be an audience. So find the audience before you create it. Like, I mean, the example I used was Zillow. Like before Zillow invested into scraping every single government database and every single address in the country, like they had to have known that there was demand for that, despite the fact that no tool told them that. So if you're creating something, like you better know who that end user is going to be and there's product market fit. So like obviously you're not going to find them in a keyword research tool. Like maybe you'll find them in the supermarket. Like I actually think I saw that in chat around the survey. Like who do you survey? Like go on the street, find the person that you think will be accessing your website or buying your product. Like talk to them. And if you can't find anybody, you have no idea where they're going to be, like that's going to be a very big marketing challenge. Like it's much harder to build a persona or, anything around marketing when you have no idea if you even will have potential customers. So I meant survey in a very non-literal sense. Survey could really be like supermarket, talking to 5 people, talk to your family, like talk to your kids, talk to your parents. Like someone's got to buy that product and you've got to know how it is they're going to use it before you invest in building it.
Awesome. There were a few questions around intent. Like how do you determine or measure intent to purchase? What are some tactics around that?
I think you often know just based on the keyword search. So if someone's typing in like best and insert product name, there's usually a high intent, especially for e-commerce products. Or, for a lot of service companies, what I see is they overproduce content when they just need to rank for like 4 keywords. And so if you're, let's say, a marketing agency, you may just need to rank for hire a marketing consultant, marketing agencies, best marketing agencies, etc., rather than trying to produce 1,000 blog posts around marketing. And that's why Top Towel is now worth $1 billion plus, is because they have a great SEO strategy and they do exactly that. They only produce content around direct hiring intent, when people are literally typing in the word hire. And everybody decided to ignore that and go after bigger traffic numbers. And they just came in and sort of wiped out, a good chunk of the space. So yes, you can just often tell based on the search itself. If you have to second guess yourself and be like, well, I'm not quite sure, you probably shouldn't rank for it. You should know. It should be pretty obvious.
So Google's an AI engine, so Google will tell you the intent. So anything that you want to know what the intent is, because Google guessed it, type it into Google and you'll see. So an example was I was working with a company that has created a software, and they were very excited because they ranked on a certain keyword, and they wrote content about, I think it was definition content. But then if you Google the actual term that they were proud that they ranked on, everyone else wrote how-to content. So like Google knows what people are looking for. Like the example I used before is weather. So like when people search weather, they don't want to know what weather is. They don't want to know like how meteorologists predict the weather. They just want to know the damn weather. So whatever term you're trying to put in, like go into Google and you'll see the intent on the topics are matching the intent that Google guessed at for most of the terms. And when Google doesn't know the real intent, they'll actually split it up. So one I remember from years ago is breadcrumbs. So there's 3 ways to do breadcrumbs. So there's a design breadcrumb, there's the web breadcrumb, and there's physical breadcrumbs. So if you Google breadcrumbs, Google will actually give you results for all 3 of those types. And if you have created a brand new breadcrumb, then Google's never going to rank you because you don't fit into one of those types.
Cool. Some questions around other social platforms and how they figure in, like Twitter, for example. Does being very active on Twitter across your keywords help rank on Google search at all?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. I've heard, people say that if you tweet links out, they get crawled faster, and I think it's a complete myth. So I know there's a lot of theories around it. I tested that one out like a long time ago. It didn't seem to be true, just based on my own personal experience. So I don't have a lot of answers there.
Yeah, I agree. I tested it years ago when Google wasn't as smart, and like they did find it. The way you would test if Google actually found a link is you'd create like a page that didn't exist and you only put on Twitter, and then you see how long it took for like that page to show up in the index. I haven't tested that in years because I think Google's a lot smarter than that. The way that you may show up on Twitter is if Twitter is showing up in the results. So I don't see this that often, but like let's say on news items, like I don't know, if you search like coronavirus or something, Google may put in the top tweets from coronavirus, but like that's not going to be, a regular person. That'll be like the NIH or something. So That's the only time it matters. Google is determining some sort of authority of which tweets show up in the carousel on that result.
Awesome. And there's, we'll take the last couple of questions here, and we'll call it a day. But when do you decide when you want to start a new website? For example, for Josh and his coupons, at what point do you start a new website for coupons? Like, you talked about creating multiple websites and whatnot. Like, how do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I ask myself that question all the time. Sometimes I think I have too much different types of content on my own site. So I'm not gonna lie, I definitely struggle with that. With that said, I would say if you are going to have like one-off pieces like that, just limit it. Like pretty much all the content besides that on my blog is about software, growth, and product. Outside of that, I should really not be producing content. I do think there is something to be said about having really strong niche websites. I've looked at a lot of data that supports it, and I've also looked at a lot of data that doesn't support it. So don't have the best answer there, but from my understanding, at least like if I were Google, I would put more value in niche websites that have authority because they produce so much content around a particular subject. And there have been case studies that have come out that said, hey, if you have deep categories within particular topics, that these posts within these topics will rank better. But those are just, all case studies are individualized to that person. So, and I'm always seeing data from both ends. But if I were Google, and I think you have to ask yourself that question sometimes, like if I were really smart and could do anything when it came to search results to show people the best content, where would I want to show them the best content from? And that's definitely someone who's an expert in that field. So the more I think constrained it is to some extent, the better it is.
Awesome. And that's, I think that's all we had. Thank you all for joining us, Eli and Josh. It was super informative. I learned a ton. And we're doing these webinars every week. And next week we have Michelle Romanov, founder of Clearbank and serial entrepreneur. And she was a dragon on the Dragon's Den, which is Canada's version of Shark Tank. And every week thereafter, we have awesome webinars like this. So stay tuned. Go to our website, tractionconf.io, and you can see upcoming events. Thank you guys, and we will circulate the video recording along with these resources on Monday. Have a good one.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.